In this video, we are going to learn about encapsulation. Now, encapsulation is one of the biggest advantages of object-oriented programming. Basically, object-oriented programming has four main pillars: encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, and polymorphism. So in this video, we will be learning about encapsulation, and in the next two videos, we will be learning about inheritance and polymorphism. Okay, so let's start. The wrapping up of data and methods into a single unit called class is known as encapsulation. So what this concept says is we wrap up the data. Data means the variables. We store data in the variables, right? So we wrap up the data and the methods into a single unit called class. So that is what encapsulation is. Now methods are nothing but functions. Okay, and we all know that functions are the small block of code that are used to perform a certain task. So basically, we are just wrapping up all the data variables and methods into a single unit called class. And in object-oriented programming, everything is written inside a class. First, we need to create a class, and then inside that, we can declare variables, we can write methods, and so on. And we can have as many classes as we want. Encapsulation is a protection mechanism for the data members and methods present inside the class. Now, we do want our code. Now, sometimes we do want that all the data variables and methods should be secure, they should be private. Okay. So, in such a case, encapsulation does provides us that flexibility so that we can make a variable private or we can make a method private so that no other variable or no other method can access that variable. Okay, so basically we can provide security to our data variables and methods. In the encapsulation technique, we are restricting the data members from access to outside world end user. Now see, this is very important point. Now, as I said, we can create as many classes as we want. Now let's say if I create two classes, okay, and in one class I have some variables and methods, and in another class I have some variables and methods. So sometimes what happens is the other class, the methods of the other class try to access the data variables of some other classes. So in such a case, if I don't want some other classes to access my data variables, I can make them private. So by making the data variables private means we are just restricting the access of that data members to the class itself. Okay, so I can basically give out the security to my variable. Okay, if the variable is private, no other class or method will be able to access my data members. So basically I'm restricting the access of my variable, and these all concepts we need in while creating some crucial applications, while when we are dealing with sensitive data. So in such cases, we need such flexibility, and encapsulation is the way we can achieve it. In PHP, encapsulation utilized to make the code more secure and robust. So basically, we are just providing security to our variables and methods. So that's why it makes the code more secure and robust. Using encapsulation, we are hiding the real implementation of data from the user, and also does not allow anyone to manipulate data members except by calling the desired operation. Okay, so now let's see this practically. I'll just explain you once again using the code so that the concepts becomes more clear. Okay, let's say if I have a tag called PHP. Okay, so what encapsulation says is we first create classes. Okay, let's say if I create a class A, for example. So inside this, I can declare my variables. Let's say private $1, then private $num2, and so on. So these are my variables. Now what happens is now I have specified a keyword in this case, which is private. So what this private says is it is an access modifier which restricts the access of this variable to this class itself. Because if I change this private to public, let's say if I declare this variable as public, that means uh, any class or any method will be able to access this data variable. Okay, so basically we have three access specifiers: private, public, and protected. So basically we are giving a permission to this variable that yes, if the variable is public, then anyone can access this variable. If it is private, only this class will be able to access this variable. And if it is protected, let's say if I give out the permission as protected, then this class and the class which is derived from this class will be able to access this variable. So my overall conclusion here is in encapsulation we are getting such flexibility to restrict the flow of a variable, to restrict the access of a variable. Similar things can be achieved for functions as well, like I can create a private function. Let's say I'm displaying something out. Okay, and here I can write the code to be executed. Okay, so I can basically say if I'm dealing with quite sensitive data and I don't want some other classes to access this variables and methods, so I can declare them as private or protected or public depending on the situation. So in encapsulation, what it says is we are wrapping up the data members and the methods in a class, and we can create as many classes as we want. Okay, we can create, let's say I have this another class, then I create some another class. Okay, and the list goes on. So this is the concept of encapsulation. Okay, and one more thing here to notice is, let's say in procedural programming, let's say in normal programming, that is procedural programming, we declare variables like this. We have variables like, let's say, okay, and we create some function say function display, and we can write some code to be executed. So now what happens is, sometimes let's say this is just 7 lines of code, but let's assume that my code is of 3000 lines of code. So in such a case, I might repeat some variable. Let's say if I created a dollar variable at line 2. Now it might happen that at line maybe 1000, at let's assume that at line 1000 I again create a variable called $a, okay, by mistake, and I assign it a value to 20. So earlier the value was 5 and now the value is 20. So basically I'm overriding this variable. Okay, so here it might lead to problems, right? But in object oriented programming it cannot, means So by using the concept of encapsulation, we can prevent this overriding, because now I am writing everything inside classes. Okay, like this, class B. So now my code is more structured. Okay, and if I don't want any class, let's say if I keep it as private $a, for example, so I cannot use this variable inside this class because it is a private variable. So here I'm getting much more flexibility, and of course my code now is more secure and robust. So this is what encapsulation is. We create classes inside which we declare variables and methods, and then we can restrict those variables and those methods as we want. Means we can keep them private or we can keep them protected or public. So this is the entire concept of encapsulation. Okay, and this is one of the biggest advantages of object oriented program. Thank you.